Dear Daily News Report viewers, after watching this video, you can reach the video we shared previously by clicking on the top right button. The main topic of the previous video was about crash in USA. We recommend watching, subscribing and sharing. Thanks in advance. We have witnessed the largest quarterly GDP drop since the last financial crisis, and experts point out that the second quarter figure will be much worse. In fact, as you will see below, an expert tells us to support ourselves for the worst economic figures in the post-World War II period. On the annual basis, US GDP fell 4.8% in the first quarter, which was slightly worse than most economists had predicted. Economists were also surprised that consumer spending declined by 7.6% and business investments by 8.6% in January, February and March. Under normal circumstances, these will be absolutely terrible numbers, but these are not normal conditions. Yes, January and February were relatively normal, but coronavirus closings begin in March, so these numbers are very bleak. Unfortunately, economic figures for the second quarter seem to be much more depressing. An economist interviewed by the New York Times actually believes that it will be the worst thing our nation has seen since the end of World War II. They will be the worst of our lives, said Don North, the chief economist for credit insurance company Euler Hermes North America. They will be the worst in the post-World War era. And at this point, even the Trump administration explicitly acknowledged that economic figures will start to become really bad. On Monday, Kevin Hassett told CNBC that US GDP could fall as much as 30% annually in the second quarter. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett warned Monday morning that the second quarter could reflect a 20 to 30% drop, something that has not been seen since the Great Depression of the 1930s. You're looking at something like minus 20 to 30% in the second quarter. This is a very serious shock and something we need to take seriously. But we do not have to wait 3 months from now on for really terrible numbers. On Wednesday, we learned that residential sales in the United States dropped in double digits in every region of the country. According to the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, contracts signed to purchase existing residences, called pending home sales, fell 20.8% compared to February and were 16.3% lower annually. Regionally, pending sales fell 14.5% in the Northeast for a month and were 11% lower than in the previous year. Sales in the Midwest decreased by 22% month-on-month and 12.4% year-on-year. Sales in the South fell 19.5% and 17.8% year-on-week, and in the West fell 26.8% and 21.5% weekly compared to the previous year. Some states are trying to reopen their economies gradually, and this is good news. The bad news is that officials tells us that not all restrictions in major states such as California and New York will be lifted by months, and this has greatly suppressed this for the foreseeable future. With so low economic activity, companies across America are surprisingly reducing workers. More than 30 million Americans has lost their jobs so far, and layoffs continue. For example, we learned that Uber plans to release thousands of employees. Managers at the information Uber are discussing plans to reduce about 20% of company employees as it copes with a sharp drop in driving salutation due to the coronavirus pandemic. Dismissals of this size, which are not finalized but may be announced gradually in the coming weeks, may cause more than 5,400 of Uber's 27,000 employees to lose their jobs. Of course, it's not just the United States that is facing an unprecedented unemployment crisis. According to the International Labour Organization, nearly half of all workers in the world are in danger of losing their livelihoods. The International Labour Organization said on Wednesday that about 1.6 billion workers in the informal economy, representing almost half of the global workforce, are at risk of losing their livelihoods due to a coronavirus pandemic. The United States agency's latest report sharply increased its predictions about the devastating impact of COVID-19 disease on jobs and incomes, which in fact more than 3.1 million people globally, killing about 220,000 people and closing economies. This is one of the biggest reasons for crashes around the world to end as quickly as possible. If people are not allowed to make a living, they will have nothing to feed their families. Even in the United States, we have already seen a shocking explosion of need. People across the country have traveled miles to get all kinds of food that local food banks can give them. And on Tuesday, we witnessed more examples of this growing phenomenon. Pico Rivera waited in line for food served in the car in California as car masks, face masks, gloves, and high viscosity jackets helped athletes to consume supplies. At Prospect, vehicles looked like snakes at the Big Butler Fairground. When the coronavirus pandemic and households are thrown into turmoil, millions of people in America come to lose their jobs. If things are so bad already, what will this nation look like when we go deeper into the perfect storm? Recently, I'm writing a bit about the future meat shortage that the mainstream media warns, and now we are told that a serious, boneless chicken shortage is already on us. As I discussed yesterday, President Trump decided to order the meat processing plants that were closed due to COVID-19 to reopen, and many hopes will end the famines quickly. But on Wednesday, the mainstream media was full of stories about how meat processing workers could decide to challenge President Trump and refuse to return to work. Meat processing plant workers are concerned about President Donald Trump's executive decision to force plants to remain open during the coronavirus pandemic. Meat plant workers are among America's most vulnerable workers, and some think the staff will refuse to go to work. All I know is this is crazy to me, because I can't see all these people going back into work, said Donald, who works in Tyson's Waterloo, Iowa. I don't think people will come back there. If the fear of COVID-19 prevents a significant percentage of workers from returning to their jobs, this may cause the resulting shortage of meat to worsen in the coming weeks. Of course, fear of coronavirus is currently paralyzing many sectors of our economy, and this will not end soon. So we should expect really negative economic figures for the foreseeable future, and it is unlikely that there will be any return before the elections in November. America's next economic crisis has begun, and it will be really painful. Most of the idea, comment, information, and criticism containing in these videos have been created by Daily News Report. Before making any important investment decision, use the information contained in these videos as a starting point for conducting your own research. If you make any investment or legal decision, it is wise to consult an expert before making this decision.